welcome back to the Barrel Talk Podcast. We are back with another episode of Let's Talk About It, and today we are going to be doing a Contenders tier list in the NBA, looking at where I believe these teams will finish out towards the back half of the season, post All-Star break, leading into the playoffs. So, first tier I have Finals Contenders. These are going to be the teams that should be favorited to make the NBA Finals going into the postseason. And below that, I have second round teams that I think are capable of winning a first round series, but maybe not reaching the conference finals. Below that is kind of in the same realm is the extremely dangerous teams that are kind of below kind of the top four, but maybe shouldn't be in the plan, but they're better than the plan, but it's just how tough the conference is, especially in the Western Conference. But these teams I feel like can really give the top teams in both conferences a run for their money. Teams that it would be tough matchups in the first round if things were to shake that way. Next, below that, first round exit / don't have enough. These kind of both go hand in hand. Teams that I believe are going to make the playoffs, but maybe not be able to really make much noise or do too much in the playoffs because I just don't feel like they might have enough this year and it just might not be their year. Below that, I have playing teams, just teams that I feel like are going to finish in the play-in. Below that, I have teams that are absolutely cooked, teams that have murky kind of futures, and really are going to be going into this offseason again, trying to shake and shuffle the roster to try to get up into the play-in bare minimum or even back into the playoff atmosphere. Below that, I have teams that are tanking, teams that are just not going to be in the playoffs, teams that aren't going to really do much this year in the second half of the year. They're really just tanking for the draft. But going into it, we have the Milwaukee Bucks started out. Now, I got the standings right here in front of me. So looking at this, it's going to be tough, right? Because I feel like the Milwaukee Bucks could realistically be a finals contender. You're talking about a team with Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is still a top 3 to 5 player in all of basketball, plus adding Damian Lillard on top of that. Now they are going to be missing Bobby Portis right up until about the playoffs. I think there's like 2 or 3, 4 games left by the time Bobby Portis plays, but if he stays in shape, he's not coming off of an injury or anything else like that. So he should be fine and ready to go for the playoffs. But I do think they're a tier below Boston and Cleveland. I think they're better than New York, especially with the New York we've seen recently and the New York Knicks team that we've seen against the top teams in both conferences. I think the Bucks are going to be a for sure second round team. I think if you going into the playoffs and you have Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo healthy in the first round and they're going to be a 3-4 seed, I like them against anybody they're going to play in the first round. Right now, they're the 4 seed. They will play the Pacers in the first round. If Giannis is healthy and Dame is healthy, I think they would take care of the Pacers last year, and I think they would take care of them this year if they were both healthy. Now going on to the Nets, tank. That's a pretty simple one. Don't need to spend too much time there. The Nets are just not a good basketball team this year. New York, see, kind of like piggybacking off what I said against Milwaukee, like they're a tier below Cleveland and Boston, and that's been very apparent this season. But the Knicks are also, I feel like, maybe a little tier below Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee's going to be able to be better defensively than New York. New York might have more of an offensive firepower and offensive push in their starting lineup, but that bench is really going to be the difference maker. And I think the Knicks need to start looking at Tom Thibodeau. Looking at the Knicks play post All-Star break, Karl-Anthony Towns has looked banged up. He's having a knee problem. He had it 2 weeks ago. I feel like they need to just go ahead and just sit him for about 2 weeks, but they're not going to do that. Tibbs is going to consistently play his guys 40-plus minutes a night, even if they're getting blown out or not. But looking at this, they don't have the bench to really be, have the luxury to rest guys when they probably need to. I think a lot of the guys on the Knicks, when I'm watching a Knicks game, especially on second night of back-to-backs where they got blown up by the Cavs and they had them in late, there's just circumstances where if I'm the Knicks, I think Karl-Anthony Towns, who's clearly banged up, needs to at least sit down for a week or two to just make sure you're healthy for the playoffs. Because if you're going into this playoffs again as a Knicks fan and you're injury prone and you're hurt and you're banged up and you're gassed by the time the playoffs get around, what's the point of playing the entire minutes that you are in the regular season? Now, I'm not saying that the Knicks need to go ahead and start just sitting guys every single other game, but you know what I'm talking about when I say the Knicks need to really manage their minutes in this point of the season because they're going to be a top 5 seed, top 6 team in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference because the bottom half of the East is so weak. But they need to really address their situation when it comes to going into the playoffs and making sure their guys are healthy and ramped up and ready to go because you don't want to see a situation like last year where everything fell apart in the playoffs for you against the Pacers. OG Anunoby missed time. Jalen Brunson ended up having a broken wrist, I want to say, or something like that. He ended up getting hurt. Josh Hart was banged up for most of the entire playoffs. He was playing through injury. The only two healthy guys that contributed to you and your success was Dante DiVincenzo and Isaiah Hartenstein, who you don't even have on the roster anymore. So now it's going to be a team that, if they can get healthy, I think they can be dangerous. But I've already seen them play against the top echelon of teams. I think that's really worrisome. But this team is built more so for the next couple of years because they got their guys locked up. But let me know in the comments what you guys think, because Tom Thibodeau, for me, they might need to take a look at it depending on how they exit this year's playoffs. If they exit this year's playoffs mainly due to a lot of guys on that team being banged up in that starting five, I think you might need to pivot and go in a different direction for a head coach. But in terms of the Knicks and what I think they can do in this back half of the season, I think they can get to the second round. I think they can get to the second round just because that bottom half of the East is really kind of just a mixed bag. You never really know what you're getting out of that bottom half of the East outside of Milwaukee, New York, Cleveland, Boston, and I can even throw Indiana in there as well. But right now the Knicks are the 3 seed. Like, they would play Detroit right now. There's a favorable matchup for them. I think they can get to the second round. Now going on to the Toronto Raptors. They are in a tanked realm as well. They just made a interesting move to get BI at the deadline. I'm interested to see what they do this offseason, but at this point, the playoffs and play-in, they're way too far away from that in the Eastern Conference right now to even think about that. They just need to focus on development in the second half of the year. Utah Jazz, tank, like they're kind of in the same realm for the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. Now looking at Houston, it's tough. Houston's a tough team because I think Houston defensively can give teams like OKC, Memphis, Denver, all of those teams that are kind of in that same pack with them in terms of where the Western Conference is right now, they have an argument to really defensively give those teams a ton of problems with how they can switch, how they can be physical. They're really well coached. But the Houston Rockets is an interesting one because I don't really know how their scoring is going to be in the playoffs on a consistent basis. Because I think defensively, they're a top 3 defensive unit in the league. They can match up defensively with anybody. But it's just like, at times, do they have that guy in the playoffs when things slow down to really go get them a bucket down the stretch of games? When I really look back and think of a specific games where I saw this come into play was when they played OKC in the play-in, the in-season tournament. And they played OKC, and it was a defensive battle, but OKC ended up pulling away at the end because they were able to give the ball to SGA, give the ball to a Jalen Williams, and go get buckets like down the stretch. So I don't know. The Houston Rockets are going to be interesting because this is this first team, like young core. I know they have guys with experience, but this young core on this roster getting into the playoffs, depending on their matchup, I'm going to say first round exit / don't have enough. More so, I want to see what I'm getting from the Rockets in the playoffs. I know they're stout defensively, but let me see them offensively show me something in the playoffs. It all depends. The Rockets' future really depends on who they match up with in the first round, and they have been struggling kind of going into the All-Star break and now post-All-Star break. Right now, they've just lost one. They're the 5th seed now. They're 35-22. They still have a decent amount there for 4-game lead over the 6th seed in the Clippers. So right now, they will be matched up with the Lakers. That would be an interesting series. Luka Doncic is starting to get it going, but they have the defense, but the other team has LeBron and Luka. You know what I'm saying? So it's just tough. I think the Rockets might just be one piece / like one more year away from being like in these top 3 tiers. But I have them in the first round exit. Pelicans, interesting season. They're another team that's like, actually, I'm putting them in cooked because they're in a situation where DeJounte Murray has a torn Achilles. He's not even going to be ready to go by next year anyways. You have Zion Williamson, who was averaging pretty much a bucket per minute, but is only getting played like 26 to like 28 minutes a night. Like, at this point, like, why play him? Why play him, right? Like, this whole thing about Zion being in shape and whatnot, according to like different sources, his weight is now at about where he was drafted at. So like, but he's not even being able to play. So I'm like, you're resting him pretty much on back-to-backs right now. You're giving him a minutes restriction when he's not hurt. Like, what are you preventing injury for? Just let him play. Just let him get into peak game shape and see what that looks like in this back half of the year. But I think they're cooked because their future is a little work. murky because like they still don't have a big. They're experimenting with Kelly Olynyk. Like you gave up Bi, brought in Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk. Like DeJounte's not going to be healthy next year. What are you going to do with CJ McCollum in the offseason? Herb Jones is out for the rest of the year. You have Trey Murphy III, who I really like, but how's he going to fit if this roster is fully healthy? Like what is the idea? What is the picture going forward for the Pelicans? Because I think they have a lot of talent on their roster, but there's really it's just a mixed bag, right? And they're going to need to answer some questions this offseason. I expect it to be a very active, very big offseason for the Pelicans. Lakers, man, by the time I'm recording this, they are playing Dallas tonight. Luka revenge game spot, but man, they've looked good. They had a really good win against Denver this past Saturday. That was really impressive because Denver's had their number. Man. They're another team matchup. In the Western Conference, it's all going to be about matchups. I have to put the Lakers in extremely dangerous. When you have Luka and LeBron, and with the way they're playing right now, Reeves is playing really well. Rui's playing really well. Luka Doncic is just starting to get going. He's going to get even better. He has a chip on his shoulder now. You still have LeBron James playing at an elite level. Like, I'd be dumb to put them in anything but extremely dangerous, because when you have a pairing of Luka and LeBron, anything can really happen for you depending on your matchup. Chicago. Where is Chicago in the play-in right now? They're in the play-in. So they're the 10th seed, 23 and 35. Like, I mean, are they like? I don't know what the Chicago Bulls' future is. What is the Chicago Bulls' future? Let me know in the comments. Like, they're the 10th seed. Like, they're not going to be in the Cooper Flaps sweepstakes. Really, they don't really have that young player they're really building around. Like, I think they're cooked. They are going into a realm now where, like, the Chicago Bulls are always going to be in the same position at the bottom of the play-in, a little bit above the play-in, like 10, 11, 9, 12 seed, like around that realm. And until they make some big changes in the front office, which from Chicago Bulls fans, it seems like that just won't ever happen, they're going to be right here. I got to put them in absolutely cooked because they're not bad enough to tank. They're just in that weird spot with the Pelicans, like, what are we doing? Like, we're not tanking and we're not good enough to compete. We're in no man's land right now. Minnesota. Minnesota is extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous. You just saw them have a big 25-point comeback win against OKC. They played OKC on back-to-back nights, had two really good games against them. Right now, they're the 7th seed. Like, looking at this, like, could I imagine it stays like how it is? 7, 8, and 9 is Minnesota, Dallas, and Golden State. Imagine being OKC or Denver and being like, well, that's sick. We got to play Minnesota in the first round. Like, you don't want to see Minnesota in the first round. I think they're an extremely dangerous team that I could see in a world where they can beat any of the top 4 teams in the Western Conference if they match up with them in the playoffs. They're an extremely dangerous team. I think they're a little bit more complete than the Lakers. I know the Minnesota Timberwolves can kind of have their woes kind of offensively, but looking at this, comparing them to the Lakers, I think they're maybe a little bit more dangerous than the Lakers. Just because I think that defensive potential and what you saw last year, they're going to get DiVincenzo back, they're going to get Julius Randle back, even though he's been a weird fit, and Rudy Gobert's whatever in the playoffs, but I think just because of if they can get fully healthy and fully ready, I think they can give the top teams in the West a problem. Portland, tank. Denver's looked good. Denver's been on a heater going into the break and coming out of the break. I think Denver's a finals contender. I think when you have Nikola Jokic, who's still probably the best player in all of basketball, I think you have to put them in finals contention. Jamal Murray has looked a lot better. You still have Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., Russell Westbrook has really given this team a jolt offensively, just pushing the pace, and he's still going to be a dog defensively. He really is kind of like just a force out there. He's somebody that they didn't really have since like Bruce Brown. They were missing that kind of that spark, that jolt off the bench last year. And I feel like Russell Westbrook has really given it to him. And I think they looked shaky at the start of the year, but Denver Nuggets have been on a heater. going into the break and coming out of the break. I think they're a finals contender. First team in the finals contender. OKC. OKC is a finals contender, for sure. But I think there's this narrative and this feeling around the NBA right now that teams really aren't scared of OKC. They're not frightened by OKC at any margin. They're just not. I just feel like all these teams that are in the bottom of the Western Conference in the play-in realm that could possibly see OKC in the first round, I don't think a lot of these teams are scared. I think they like their chances. I think they like their matchup against OKC. Now, do I agree with that? I don't know, because OKC went out very weird last year, because it was really just SGA and nobody else came to play against the Dallas Mavericks, and the Dallas Mavericks really have had their number. They've had their number. Same with like the Minnesota Timberwolves. They split this season 2-2 against the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team they could play in the first round. Dallas has killed them in the past couple of matchups, handful of matchups actually. So Dallas has had their number, even being hurt without Luka at some points. I know they're still trying to get all the way healthy, but if you mess around and have Dallas in the first round, they're fully healthy. They've already just had your number to begin with. That's a tough series. And then Golden State. Golden State has beat them multiple times this year. Now Golden State has Jimmy Butler. They have another weapon next to Steph Curry. So so all three teams OKC could play in the first round that could be matchups. They've struggled with. They've struggled with Golden State. They've struggled with Dallas. They've struggled with Minnesota at times, even though it was a split series. But all three of these teams have proven they can match up well with OKC. Now, with all three of those teams just happening to be in the play-in / in that realm of you could be playing them in the first round, I think it's super, super interesting. But OKC is definitely a finals contender. Do I agree with some of the stuff that gets thrown OKC's way about them, teams not really being frightened by them? I don't know. I got to see them perform really well in this playoff run. This is a very high-pressured season for OKC. Last year was like, okay, we were young. Not like they were happy to be there, but like they were young. Okay, get to the second round. Ran into Luka, Kyrie, who were on a heater. Like, that's tough. But now it's to the point where I think there's a little added pressure, especially if you got Shea winning the MVP. Bare minimum, you got to lose like you did last year in the second round in like a tough 7. Like, it has to be one of those series for me to not say this is going to be a disappointing season for the OKC Thunder. I don't fully agree with these narratives and these takes, but I do see the both sides of the argument for sure. But I think OKC is still definitely a finals contender. Memphis. Memphis is an interesting one. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about Memphis, right? 3 seed right now. I think John Morant has had a bit of an up and down year. Jaren Jackson Jr. has been phenomenal. Currently the 3 seed, have a 2-game lead over LA for the 4 seed. They're a team that if they match up in the 6th spot, like they're kind of in that same realm of Clippers, Minnesota, Dallas, Golden State, all fighting for that 6th spot. And if Houston slides down, that would be another matchup for them. But they're tough. I don't know how to really gauge Memphis this year. I think they're a really, really good regular season team. But do they have enough to get over the hump in the playoffs, right? I'm gonna say they're a second round team. I think they could beat the Clippers. That'd be a really good series. Right now, that would be the series of Memphis Clippers in the first round. I think they could beat the Clippers. I think they could beat. They could beat Houston. If Houston fell, then it's like, man, Minnesota, Dallas, and Golden State are all tough matchups. Like those 3 teams, like, man, that's a tough realm. But I think Memphis is a second round team. I think if they can get John Morant going into the playoffs, I think they will be okay. I think they'll be fine going into the playoffs. Dallas, extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous. I know they have a lot of talk right now about the trade, Luka Doncic trade. AD's not healthy. All 3 of their bigs are just hurt right now. They're dealing with some injuries. But if this team, the brief amount that we saw AD, I think they're extremely dangerous. The worst case scenario, if you're OKC and the Dallas Mavericks match up with you with the 1-8, man, and they're healthy, I think the main thing is them getting in. If they can just get in, because I think they're going to end up being a play-in team. I think they're starting to kind of spiral a little bit right now because the injuries are kind of really starting to play a factor. Because they got routed by Golden State. Now they're going into a situation where they're going to play LA, Luka revenge spot. Like, I just think they're having some tough games right now. It's where I think they end up in the plan. But if they get into the plan and they can get healthy, I think they can be an extremely dangerous team. But I think they're going to end up finishing there. But I'm going to put them in the extremely dangerous team category because I think just because they're in the plan, I think they can still be an extremely dangerous team. Spurs. God, when the Wemby injury kind of kills it, they're not going to be where are they at right now. So the Spurs are the 12 seed, 24-31. They're a bit out of the play-in realm. I just don't see them winning enough games, especially without Wemby and no big man on the roster, really. I'm not going to... they're not cooked. They're not cooked. They are. Missing Wemby and having real no big to back those minutes up and missing him for the entire season. That's tough. I think they're absolutely cooked. They're kind of in no man's land as well because they're not bad enough to really be in that tanking realm, but they're not good enough to be in that plan. They're kind of right here in the absolutely cooked tier. Suns are cooked. Suns are cooked. It's over. It's done for. Matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and put this other team right here as well. Because I wanted you guys to let me know. I hit my group chat with my friends where we were just talking NBA about the Suns and the Sixers. Going forward, would you rather be the Phoenix Suns or the 76ers? Two teams that have a great amount of talent, underperforming. The fit doesn't seem to be there. The Sixers are dealing with injuries, while the Suns are dealing with more of a fit problem. But both teams have really expensive rosters, but what are they going to look like going forward? In my opinion, I would rather be the Phoenix Suns because at least you can trade your stars. Paul George isn't getting traded. He's probably on the worst contract in all of basketball right now. Joel Embiid has realistic career injury concerns at this point in his career. To where it's like he needs another knee surgery. What does he look like after another knee surgery? You know what I'm saying? And now you have a young piece in Tyrese Maxey. But your 1A and your third star are either hurt or just playing bad. So it's interesting. I'd rather be in the Phoenix Suns situation, me personally, because Bradley Beal has really been underrated this year. He's kind of been in a real weird role to where he's starting and coming off the bench, but I think he's made the most of that role. You still have Devin Booker. I expect Kevin Durant to be traded in the offseason. And what you get back for Kevin Durant can bolster up some of the roster. Maybe another year removed from the Bradley Beal situation on his contract. Maybe it might be a little bit easier to trade him. But I think the Suns have more hopefulness in turning things around compared to the Sixers, who I feel like Joel Embiid's injury concerns are just a real detriment to this team going forward. I know you still have Maxey, but you're having Paul George for another handful of years. Like, it's just tough. I'd rather be in the Phoenix Suns situation, me personally, rather than the 76ers situation. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. But going on to the Clippers, interesting. I really, really like what the Clippers did this deadline. I think Bogdanovich is a huge pickup. Add some spacing for you that you desperately needed. Derrick Jones Jr., Norman Powell, Harden, Zoop. Like, they are an interesting team. They're the 6th seed right now. 6th seed right now. I think they're a first round exit. They're tough. The West is so tough. As much as I like the Clippers roster, I don't know. They would have to. You're also thinking of they would have to get Kawhi Leonard fully healthy for a playoff series, which is something we've barely seen in the past couple of years. So if they don't have Kawhi Leonard healthy, I definitely think they're a first round exit. And he's kind of in and out of the lineup as is already. So with my mindset on thinking that the Clippers are banking on the fact that they can get Kawhi Leonard healthy, I'm going to say they're a first round exit. Even if Kawhi Leonard's healthy, like best they could make a good series with Memphis. I think they could beat Memphis if everything went well for them and got fully healthy. But I think right now, as it stands, I think they're a first round exit. Yeah. Now going into the dangerous, I have the Warriors. 5-1 with Jimmy Butler. The vibes are great in Golden State right now. Steph Curry is back to Steph Curry. You could just see the gravity that Jimmy Butler has on the court. It makes it so much easier for Steph Curry. You've seen Brendan Przemski really turn the season around. He's been playing better ever since Jimmy Butler really got there. Just having the idea and having somebody of the caliber of Jimmy Butler, somebody who is so really just savvy on the court, fits in this offense perfectly. He's the perfect complement to somebody like Steph Curry, because with how he fits in this offense, Jimmy Butler is not really somebody you have to run plays for. He's somebody that kind of gets his flow in the offense. They ran more of a down screen for Steph to go back door. And when Steph went back door, they switched it. Jimmy Butler's man took Steph cleared out onto the other side, rotated. Now Jimmy Butler has the screener, goes and follows Steph instead of popping like it usually goes in their offense. Instead of popping, he has Steph's defender now on the switch, and now he has him sealed on his backside. Now all Jimmy Butler has to do is roll. The gravity of Steph Curry is clearing out. Meanwhile, Jimmy Butler now has an entire open lane, and if he's getting the ball on a back cut like he is here, it's a foul or a layup. Something the Golden State Warriors haven't had in their offense in quite some time is somebody that can truly get downhill, and they've looked so good as of late with Jimmy Butler. They still are missing Jonathan Kuminga, who's a 15 to 20 point per game scorer for them. So they're adding more offense once he comes back. I'm pretty sure he's going to be coming back at some point. They're going on a 5-game road trip after tonight's game against the Hornets. And they have one of the lighter schedules in the rest of the season. And they've matched up well with OKC. Denver's been interesting, but I haven't seen them play Denver with Jimmy Butler yet. So I think they're going to be extremely dangerous in any first-round series. If you're playing Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler with a Draymond Green, with how well they're coached, with that pedigree they have over there, I think they're an extremely dangerous team. I think these 4 teams right here, I wouldn't be absolutely shocked if one of these 4 teams made the conference finals. I wouldn't be so shocked if one of these 4 teams made it, in my opinion. I really think one of these teams is going to upset somebody and upset a higher seed in the Western Conference this postseason. I think it all depends on matchups, but all 4 of these teams, if you had a matchup with them in the first round, damn. But Golden State have to put in extremely dangerous. Detroit, first round exit, don't have enough. Listen, phenomenal year. They are on a 7-game win streak right now in Detroit. They are not beating New York 7 games. They're not. They're just not. And they're definitely not beating Milwaukee in a series. But this is a phenomenal season for this group. I wish the only thing that would have made me change my mind on them, maybe put them in a dangerous category, is if they went out and added at the deadline. I would have loved to see them go after Brandon Ingram. Even though he is hurt, adding another scoring option and creator next to Cade, I think is going to even open up the game even more for him, even though he's been phenomenal this year. I really don't know if there's four guards that have been playing better than Cade Cunningham this year. They already have as many wins this season as they have the past 3 years. 2 to 3 years, I'm pretty sure. It's crazy. And they're going to be a top 6 seed. They're probably going to finish above the plan. Crazy. But I think their first round exit, they just don't really have enough to really beat any of the top Eastern Conference teams in the playoffs. Sacramento Kings, they're going to be a play-in team. They're weird. Their situation is like, I don't see them beating any of the teams in the play-in. Like, I don't see them beating Golden State or Dallas or Minnesota or the Clippers even. The Suns are still 2 games out. Like, the Kings could also still not make the playoffs, but with what the Suns are looking like right now, I think the Kings are going to be in the play-in and be a play-in team, but the Kings are just in a weird spot, man. The De'Aaron Fox trade for me was like, okay. Like, you bring in Zach LaVine, but it's just like, this team, like, I feel like the ceiling got lower getting rid of Fox, if that's crazy to say. But I feel like the ceiling, if it didn't stay the same, maybe got a little bit lower for this team. I think they're just going to end up being a play-in team this year and probably getting bounced in the play-in. The Cavs, finals contender. Finals contender. The DeAndre Hunter move was huge at the deadline. Looking at what they are able to do in the playoffs, they're kind of in the same realm as OKC for me, right? Where I can even just go ahead and slide Boston up here as well. I've seen it from Denver. I've seen it from Boston. I feel like these two teams that are still incredibly young have had woes in the playoffs. The Cavs kind of went out iffy last year, the past 2 years, really. But this year, I feel like with Kenny Atkinson, they really, really turned the corner. And Evan Mobley is being one of the best defensive players in basketball. Garland has really been an emerging comeback player, especially off last year where he was dealing with a ton of injuries in the middle of the year, which kind of derailed his season. But now, the Cavs and OKC, I feel like are going into the playoffs, has the top seeds, has the top dogs, are going to probably be one of the is going to be one of the favorites going into the finals. But I feel like they just have more to prove. I feel like they're going to go into this playoffs with a chip on their shoulder rather than like Denver, who's been there before, done it before, know what they need to do. Same with the Boston team. I think there's just a little bit of hesitancy with me with OKC and the Cavs. Just a little bit. I would say I would take Denver and Boston a tier above those teams, but then it's OKC and Cleveland, right? Just because I need to see in the playoffs more so because I just am more comfortable with a Denver and a Boston over Cleveland and OKC right now. I hope I'm proven wrong, but they're still in the finals contending tier. I'm kind of splitting hairs trying to rank some of these teams in the top 4, but I feel more comfortable. Let me know in the comments if I'm crazy with Denver and Boston rather than OKC and Cleveland. That's just how I feel right now. Charlotte, tanking. Washington, tanking. Orlando. Man, the injuries have been big time for Orlando. Big time injuries for Orlando. I think they're going to be a play-in team this year. They're in the plan right now. Now when you're looking at it, the Pistons have Pistons are 32-26. Their Magic are 29-30. I think they're going to finish in the play-in this year. I think they're going to be a play-in team. I can't put them in the dangerous tier because I think offensively they're still very limited. And they've had some injuries to kind of really derail some of the season. They're still missing Jalen Suggs. He's been out for some time. Paolo missed a good chunk of the season already. Franz also missed a big chunk of the season already. They both just got back healthy, going into the break. But I think they're a play-in team. I just don't think they really have enough to be kind of in that tier. I think they're going to just finish in the play-in, possibly get out of the play-in, but I don't think they really have enough this year. And as somebody who was big on the Orlando Magic going into the year, the injuries piling up at the worst time, I think it's just been a tough season for Orlando. But I think they're going to finish in the play-in. Miami Heat, play-in. I can't put them in extremely dangerous anymore without Jimmy Butler. This would be a prime spot for the Miami Heat to be in, but with the whole Jimmy Butler situation, Andrew Wiggins has been hooping since he has been with the Miami Heat, which I think they're in a good spot going forward. I really, really do. I think they're going to be a situation to where if you were to have conversations about plucking a star player with the Miami Heat, I think it could get very interesting because they have all the connecting pieces. But I think this season is also really kind of tough. You had all the Jimmy Butler stuff. I think this season's kind of a wash. I think they're going to be in the play-in. Could they get out of the play-in? Sure, they could get out of the play-in, but I don't see them making any kind of real noise in the playoffs at all. The Hawks, I got to put in the same realm, kind of the same situation. The Jalen Johnson injury is huge. The Jalen Johnson injury is huge because he was playing so well. Probably going to win Most Improved. But with his injury, I think this team just doesn't have enough. Letting go of DeAndre Hunter as well, I feel like they kind of, and Bogdanovich, I feel like they kind of like low-key push their chips in to try to think about next year, but they're going to finish in the plan. Could they get out of the plan? Yes, Trae Young can make things happen, but they're not making any real kind of noise. All of these teams in the play-in realm, I don't see any of them making any real big-time noise if they were to get into the playoffs anyways, but they're going to finish in the play-in. Pacers, man. Pacers are always tough to gauge. They made a run last year, but I feel like they only beat the Bucks because the Bucks were hurt last year. They ended up beating New York in 7. Competitive series against Boston for the most part, but they got handled. I never know where to put the Pacers. I think the Pacers are our first round exit. A good team, but they're the 5 right now. I would take Milwaukee over them. I would take New York over them. I would take Boston and Cleveland, obviously, over them. So it's like, I think they're a first round exit. They might not have enough. I think they can match up well with New York. But I think if Milwaukee's fully healthy, I think Milwaukee kills them. I think Giannis has a day against them. New York is interesting. I think it'll be an offensive battle. But I still probably lean New York against the Pacers. But getting into this is kind of my contenders tier list going into this back half of the season, going into the playoffs, on where I think teams will end up finishing. I kind of have a take to wrap up this video. I think it's time the NBA needs to start getting rid of conferences. I've had this kind of topic before. We've discussed it in group chats of mine. But there's no reason why a team that has multiple games under 500 should have a chance at the playoffs. There's no reason for it. When you're looking at it, the 10th seed Sacramento Kings, who are the 10th seed in the Western Conference, would be the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference. Like, when you're looking at these teams, the Houston Rockets, who are the 5 seed, they would be in the mix for the 4 seed in the East. I just think the Western Conference is such a deeper conference to where teams shouldn't get penalized for the East being so goddamn bad, because a lot of teams that finish out West are going to be 40 to 45 win ball clubs, but they're going to be in the play-in. But meanwhile, you're going to see teams well below 500 get a chance to make the playoffs in the play-in. It doesn't sit right with me to see teams like Miami 4 games below 500. Chicago's 23-35, the 10 seed, is going to have a slight chance. They're probably not going to make it, but they're going to have a chance. They're going to be a chance team in the play-in to make the playoffs. That's crazy. And then you're looking at the team like the Sacramento Kings, who's the 10 seed, who's a game above 500. A game above 500. Even Phoenix, who's 27-30, would be in the play-in mix. Would be the 8th seed almost in the Eastern Conference. So I think when you're looking at this and how lackluster the Eastern Conference is at that bottom half, I think the NBA has to even get the mind going on getting rid of conferences, because I think teams in the West shouldn't be penalized by having 40, damn near 45, 50 win teams, but being stuck in the play-in realm every year. But then you see a team like Chicago have a chance in the play-in comfortably, being 23-35. Like, you know what I'm saying? I think that if you are multiple games below 500, I'm going to say like 6 to 7 games below 500, you should not have a chance of making the playoffs. You should not be able to qualify for the play-in. To me, there's just no reason why these teams should even have a shot at the playoffs, but that's just my take. Thank you guys for tuning into the Barrel Talk podcast. Hope to see you tune in to future episodes.